Hello viewers and welcome to a new STM32 World video. At this point in time I would usually say welcome to a new STM32 World tutorial video, but this one is not really going to be a tutorial video but more a rant against a thing that annoys me incredible. I'm probably going to call this video STM32 World Rant number 1. However, I don't know if it's going to be a series, if I can find other things to rant about. I like ranting, so I'll probably move on to that. But at the moment, it is development boards. This specific video was triggered by somebody in a comment on this YouTube channel that asked if I could make a video about low-level modes. And I thought that was an excellent idea because I actually had a development board available. Let me show you that here. The one on the left is actually an STM32L152 discovery board. And that one actually have a built-in circuit to measure the current consumption. So I thought that one was an ideal one to use for this project. But as I moved along, I realized just how bad it was, and it's going to have to wait a bit until I make my own development board to demonstrate these things. And I don't know when that's going to be. But let's look at that. So I started actually creating a web page where I plan to document these boards, the good, the bad, and the ugly. As you can see, at the moment it's empty. I haven't really written this page yet, but I will get around to it. But what I did do was I made a page with what I consider completely useless STM32 development boards. And I can only urge you to avoid these boards, all of them, like the plague. Well, what development boards you could potentially buy, I will get back to that at the end of this video, and eventually they will go into the good on this page. But for now, let's look at some of the biggest sinners in terms of useless STM32 development boards. The first one, by far, is the most popular Blue Pill board, and it bugs me no end that if you go to YouTube and you search for STM32 tutorial, some of my videos will show up there, which is fair enough, but if you look here, you will see Blue Pill, Blue Pill, Blue Pill. Most of these videos will actually use a Blue Pill board, and in my opinion, it is completely and utterly useless. The main reason for that is that 90% of, if not more, I would say probably 100% of what you buy out of China of these boards does not contain an STM32 microcontroller. They will, however, pretend to contain one. Now, if you look at this one, which is a photo of, there, I was hiding this one, it's a photo of the first STM32 development board I bought. And as it turns out, and I can show you that here, it pretends to have an STM32 microcontroller on it. It says STM32F103C, either B or 8. It's a little hard to read. But I can guarantee you it is not. This one is most likely an HK32, which is an STM32 clone readily available in China, and they are a bit cheaper than the STM32 version, but not a hell of a lot. I think you can get an STM32 F103 for about $1.40 or 50 or thereabout, and these are $1 in low quantities. I wouldn't have a problem with this board if it actually had the original chip markings on it, because then I can go and read the datasheet of the original MCU, but these are not 100% compatible. They're like 99.9% compatible, but there are differences, and those differences need to be known to the user, or it's a giant waste of time, because you end up having issues and you don't know, you're guessing, and you will not know. Now, the photo here on the right is actually an STM32F103C8. I know this because this is my own board, and I know these chips are the real deal. So, as you can see, there's no visible difference, except, okay, this one seems to be a little more sloppy in the engraving, but I have seen STM32 that were not very precisely printed either, so I wouldn't guarantee that, and you have no way of knowing. Now, the simple fact is that most of the boards you buy in China of these are the fake ones, so avoid the blue pill boards. There are better alternative, and we will get back to that later. Now, the first board I ever bought was that STM32 blue pill board, but around the same time, and I can't remember why, I got my hands on one of the Discovery boards. It was actually I got two actually, but let's look at this one first, which is the STM32F407G Discovery. Now, this one is actually a fairly, I'm going to go away for a while because it's better to show the pictures here. This one is actually on the surface a really nice board. It actually contains up here, like most of these ST development boards, it contains an ST-Link built in, so you can just hook it up with ST-Link. Now, it uses an a micro SD connector, which is, in this day and age, annoy me no end, because everything is USB-C now, and I prefer to have USB-C, and that's all good. Anyway, it is very, very nice board. It contains an ST-Link version 2-1. Head over to my ST-Link page and you will see more information about the different version of these. However, this ST-Link have the benefit of being able to use SWD, the debug, single wire debug. It can use SVO, which is serial wire out, I think it's short for, and it can emulate a UART, a serial port over the USB as well. And that means you can actually use serial debugging with these. And that is brilliant. There's only one little problem here, and that is they didn't bother to put in two traces from the ST-Link to the target MCU. Now, they recommend, and I'm not joking, this is a photo from the user guide to this board. They recommend you solder a wire on there and over to this header. Now, I could probably do that with a magnifying glass, but these pins are 0.5 millimeter between them, so it's really tight. And even when I had perfect eyesight some 20 years ago, I couldn't have done this without a magnifying glass. It is absolutely insane on a development board, and it's not like they were short of space. They have tons of space. They could have added a jumper like that, and I could add 2 jumper wire, that's fine, or they could do a soldered jumper, which they do quite a lot on these boards, and I could just solder it up wherever I wanted it to go. Why on earth they didn't put those wires in as traces on this board, it's just completely baffling to me. And for that reason alone, I think it's a useless board. Now, the very first one I got is actually, and as I said, the one that started this video, is actually the L152C Discovery board. Now, this one have built in, you can measure the current consumption of the MCU, so it is an ideal board on the surface to test battery operation. But here comes the insanity of this board. Now, ST decided to save probably 10 cents by not bothering to put in a high-speed external crystal for this processor. And it's okay. I mean, I can buy a crystal. I probably have some lying around, and it is a true hole, so it's not too troublesome to solder in a crystal. But over here, you have the two capacitors, and they are 0603 footprints, which is extremely hard to solder by hand. It can be done. I have done it before, but why, oh why didn't they bother to put in those capacitors while they were at it? And why didn't they put in the crystal? They did put in the crystal up here for the ST-Link, because that's kind of necessary for the ST-Link, but they didn't bother to put it on the target processor, and it's just, it is pure madness, and I cannot see a reason for it, because these crystals, they are not expensive. I think I can buy one for probably less than 20 cents. If you buy 1,000 of them, they will probably cost less than 5 cents per crystal, and the capacitors cost nothing. I mean, we're talking about a fraction of a cent per crystal, so it's not. Now, they also conveniently put the option of a battery, because this is meant to test battery operation, so they put the footprint for a coin cell battery holder on the back. Unfortunately, the choice they took for this footprint, they exist. There are battery holders where the pin sticks out on each side. There's also true hole battery holders, and if they pick one of those, it wouldn't have been a problem to solder a coin cell holder on this board. However, and this is where it becomes insane, this pin is completely covered by plastic. There is no way I can solder that with a soldering iron. It will have to go through a soldering. You will have to use solder paste, and it will have to go through an oven to solder this properly. I did try to get one and bend the pin under and see if I could solder it on, and I gave up on it. It's just not possible. And the one they recommend in the manual you get is not available for the any longer. So you simply cannot put a coin cell holder on this board. Yes. Now, you would have thought this is pretty crazy and this is enough, but let's move on. Now, the ST-Link is connected. It doesn't have the serial communication, because this is only an ST-Link version 2. It doesn't have the virtual serial port, so that's not an option. But I could live with that if SVO was available, and SVO kind of is wired up to the SVO pin on the target MCU, which is pin PB3 if I'm not mistaken. It is wired up, but the same pin is being used for this gigantic display up here that requires, I don't know, 20 GPIO pins. And while there are pins that are unused on this MCU, they decided to use PB3 for the display. So SVO, it's kind of there, but it kind of doesn't work. Which is, I mean, it's insanity. So I basically I've dug this board out of my drawer to actually make a video for this guy that wanted a low power mode, and I wanted to experiment with it, so that was all very cool. However, I completely gave up when I discovered how insane this board is. I can't be bothered to find a serial USB serial adapter in a drawer, wire that up and all that, just to, so no. This board is, in my humble opinion, almost completely useless because of these these two issues. So why is the situation this bad? Now, I understand that for a company like ST Microelectronics, these boards are loss leaders. They don't make money on them. They most likely sell them below cost. I mean, this board, for example, the STM32L152C Discovery, they are $11 or something like that. And it contains two MCUs, the display, some crystal, one crystal, not some crystal, a couple of buttons, some LEDs, and I mean, it probably cost them at least $10-11 to make this board. I can't imagine they make hundreds of thousands of them, so I don't know. But still, the fact that these boards are cheap and readily available is what course engineers, newcomers, people who need tutorial, presumably most of my viewers here, to buy one of these boards. And that is later when they get a job and they say, and the management come, we need a device that does this. They will say, well, okay, STM32, I mean, that will do the trick. And that is why STM32s are as prominent as they are in the market space. TI have always had a philosophy of considerably more expensive development boards, sometimes several $100s, and that is a lot for an amateur that just want to hack around a bit and learn. So I can understand why they are not dedicating an enormous amount of resources to these things. But I saw this the other day, and that is actually quite interesting. It's a job ad from ST Microelectronics in Italy, no less. I wouldn't mind living in Italy. But it's an intern. They want an intern to do internship application engineer, and this is primarily to do their solutions and systems to show, adventure, and promote. So this is what they do is they probably have some kind of intern design these boards, and he will be there for, I don't know, 6 months, and then he'll bug off and get a better job somewhere else. And that is why these are so messy and so incomplete. That is why whatever this was shipped out, they don't have dedicated resources. Hi ST, I'm here. You can offer me a job and I will make them better. Just you can find my email down below and send me an email if you want to offer me a better job. Anyway, that is the primary ones to avoid. I will suspect, I have obviously not tried all of them, but I would suspect that all the Discovery boards are the same. Pretty much. They put in a lot of useless stuff that we don't need. This one, for some bizarre reason, have a I2S audio out and amplifier down here. Okay, 99% of my projects, I don't need that. It also got a accelerometer, I think, and a few other things on this board, and that's all very good and very nice. But most of the time is not needed. A better option is probably the Nucleo boards, which seems more clean. They just have the processor and the ST-Link and nothing else, and that to me is a much better option. But I don't have one, so I don't really know. If anybody want to sponsor me one, send it to me and I'll be happy to have a look at it and comment in another rant. It could be that it's the most fantastic development board ever made. So this pretty much explained, after I went through these two boards and the useless blue pill board, I decided to design my own development board. And the first one I designed was this, which I imaginatively called my green pill board, because it was green, because at that time I couldn't get it in blue or any other color for that matter, so it became the green pill board, revision A, and this one has now gone through 4 or 5 iterations and is now, I don't know, a G or where are we? Revision C. In revision C I put a USB-C connector on the other side of the board. Originally it was in button and I had to hand solder it, but it flipped up there. The buttons are a bit smaller and I used a 16 megahertz crystal, but this board is essentially 100% identical to how the Blue Pill boards should have been. I even think it's pin compatible or nearly pin compatible. It's probably pin compatible with another one, which I'll get to now. Now, if you are really on a tight budget, the board I would recommend is the Black Pill board. Now, these boards are typically, I've seen them with the STM32F103 as well, but they are normally based on either an STM32F401 MCU or STM32F411. Now, let's put a nail through that because the price difference is usually like 20 cents or so. So by the F111, it contains a lot more flash and a lot more RAM, if I'm not mistaken. These boards, they have a LED on C13, and they got a button, and a user button on A0, I think it is. And that's it. The rest just out on the header. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the last version of my green pill is exactly pin compatible with the typical Black Pill board, just because that was it. Now, be careful if you watch this video a while after it is made. My guess is eventually these will be available as clones as well. But I think at the moment, I don't think the F411 exists in a clone, and that is why they typically are the real deal. They come in different, I mean, these two, if you look carefully, this one have nicely round traces, this one have ragged traces, if you like. So these are definitely two different, but they're the same processor, and they both work fine. I have a handful of these in my drawers. I probably have 10 by now, and the thing I really like about them is that on the flip side, there's a footprint for an EEPROM, and I have probably soldered those on. I bought a stack of them at some point and soldered those on the back. If you look at this photo, which is mine, I will typically use this with my own ST-Link, my homemade ST-Link, and then because my homemade ST-Link also have the serial port. So you can see here I have the SVO port and I have the serial port wired over to the header pins here, and the usual 4 SVD connectors are wired up here, and you can see I soldered the EEPROM on the flip side, and that worked perfectly well. Now, there's really no reason, and now we're back to those my YouTube search earlier. There's no reason to buy a Blue Pill board. These are dirt cheap. If we Google, go to AliExpress, I'm sure the same is possible on Amazon or whatever you have access to in wherever you live, and search for STM32F411. You will literally have hundreds of these ads, and you can search around, find the best option. If we look at a random one here, you can see this one is probably not the cheapest, but you can see an ST-Link is $1. I've seen them less than $1. I've seen them for 90 something cents for the ST-Link. They're not fantastic. They don't have SVO. They don't have serial port. They can be hacked to have SVO, but they don't have it by default. But anyway, it will work. And then you can see a C8, which is the 64 kilobyte version of, C8, it's not, they don't even live, which is a good thing. Do they have, here. So they have an STM32 for 112. They're actually more expensive with the fake chip. That's interesting. It's probably a lie, I would guess. I'm quite sure this is not an STM chip, but I'm also quite sure you can see these sell for 145 at the max, and then you can go to the Black Pill, which is there, the one I have with the F411 CE module, and it is $3.60. So $3.60 plus $1, so $4, less than $5. You have a good combination. Now, if I were to order these from this particular vendor, I would probably order all of them, because typically for an order like this, you end up spending more money on shipping that you actually spend on the products. But if we go back, you can see other option. What is this? Here you have, what are they? Maybe it was the same, but look around and find the one that looks more reasonable. I generally, on AliExpress, I'll avoid the ones where the description is completely mad. So, I mean, and pick a better one. But yeah, Black Pill STM32 F411 with a USB-C connector, a user button, and a LED, and nothing else. There's actually only one thing I don't like with these, but that is not the manufacturer of these boards problem. That is because, let's see if I can find the page again with my Black Pill. I think it was here. For some bizarre reason, the maximum frequency you can run the F411 at is 100 megahertz. Unfortunately, you need where do I describe it? I have it here, the oddity. You need 48 megahertz for the USB if you want to use the USB port. So you cannot derive 48 from 100 or anywhere around that. So if you put the 25 megahertz crystal, you can run 100, but if you run 100, you cannot use the USB. If you want to use the USB, you need to run it at a 96 megahertz, because that is the highest frequency where you can derive a 48 from the same phase lock loops in between here. You can derive the 48 from that. So 96 megahertz with a 25 megahertz crystal is what they do, and it works. So anyway, it's a minor issue. You just can't typically run them at 100 megahertz if you're using the USB port. So that is pretty much that is what I wanted to rant about today. It is mostly a rant against ST for making useless discovery boards, or rather for having interns developing useless discovery boards. Now, it is possible that the nuclear boards are better overall. They look better on the surface to me, but I haven't played with one, so I can't really say if they are as good as they look or they are not. I should probably get my hand on a pile of them one day, and I might make a future videos. Anyway, please let me know down below what you think about these development boards, which ones you had access to, and what you think is good and what is bad. Particularly if you have actually used the nuclear boards, let me know about that. I would love to know the experience of that one. If you are employed by ST, send an email to one of the managers and tell them, oh, this guy, he knows how to make development boards, and I'll be happy to work with you as a consultant or whatever you feel like. Yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say in this one. Avoid the blue pill boards at all cost, and avoid these complicated discovery boards, because I really think they are annoying to the max. As usual though, have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye bye.